Hi there. As we approach the end of the year, it's time to start thinking about wrapping things up. And for that means closing up your Google Classroom. There are some steps you can take to properly close up a classroom at the end of the year so that you're ready to start fresh with your next group of students. So that's what we want to talk about today, wrapping up your Google Classroom. So let's get started. Here we are taking a look at my Google Classes. And I've got 6 different classrooms in this account, and the one that I want to close up today is this old one down here in the lower right corner, the Google Exploration Classroom. So let's click and open that, and the first thing we want to go to is the Grades tab. Now, this is a tab that you may not have used this year. You may not have been collecting student work, grading it, and returning it to students. But if you did, this is where you would start. You would come to each of your assignments, click on the 3 dots, make sure you return all the work to the students. Don't leave work sitting in your account. It will prompt you if there's something not graded. You can assign a grade if necessary, and then return all that work to the students. If you have not been collecting and grading work in this way, then you can skip this step and move right on to your next step, which would be the People tab. This is where you'll see all the teachers that you may have invited to your class this year and all of the students that you may have invited to your class this year. And now is the time to remove those. If you've got extra teachers in your classroom, you can remove those by clicking the 3 dots next to their name. I don't have an extra teacher, so I can't show you that, but the same would work for the extra students. You can click the 3 dots next to their name and remove the student. For the classwork and the stream, you can just leave those as they are. And then you can decide, what do I want to do with the classroom as a whole? Now you may be thinking, I just want to keep going with this classroom in summer school, or I want to keep going with this classroom next September. But if you take a look at your classroom, there's already a lot of sections and a lot of assignments, and it will go on for quite some time. You can see all the different topics that have already been created. As you keep adding to that, it just becomes more and more for people to scroll through, more and more opportunities for students to select the wrong activity and then have to come back to find the right one. So it's probably best if you start a new classroom for the summer and then a new classroom for the fall. It's really good to restart and get a fresh start with your classroom a few times a year. So even though you've got a lot of great things here, we're going to look at how we can move that to somewhere else. But before we do, one final thing is to click right here on Google Calendar. If you click Google Calendar, it will open up your calendar and it will take you to the calendar that's associated with this particular classroom. You'll see that I have that one down here. In fact, all of my classrooms are down here. And so you can find the one associated with this class, click the 3 dots, and hide it from the list, because you don't need to see these activities anymore. You can start cleaning up your calendar by just hiding the calendars for the classrooms that are now going away. Back in Google Classroom, we will come to our opening screen again, and now it's time to make a decision. If you think you might use some of these assignments as is or in a slightly modified form next year, or maybe you even like the structure of this classroom, you can click the 3 dots here and make a copy of this classroom. It will make a copy so that there's no one invited to it. All of the assignments will be in their draft form, but everything will still be there waiting for you to open it up, edit it, and publish it in the future. So that's one way you can think about moving forward. Whether or not you do that, up to you. And then the last step is to come here and archive the classroom. It will tell you archived classrooms can't be modified, but classes will all remain in Google Drive. That's all fine. Just click archive. Now it's gone. Don't worry that it's gone. It's always really there for you, because in your list you can always come all the way down to your archived classes and you will see the things that you've archived. In fact, you can even restore those back to an active class if you ever need to. So there's no reason to delete them. You've got plenty of storage space here. Use your archive button That helps you clean up your classroom screen so that you really are only looking at your active screens. Now that you've finished with the work inside your Google Classroom, let's take a moment to specifically look at that Google Drive folder that's associated with your classroom. Every one of your Google Classrooms is going to create a folder and put it in your Google Drive and fill it up with all kinds of things. Let's take a moment to look at how we can organize that, because we want to make sure we never throw away the actual classroom folder. That's hard to recover. So let's take a moment and dig into your Google Drive Classroom folder. So what are we going to do about the Google Classroom file in your Drive? Well, let me show you how that works. When you very first start your first Google Classroom, this folder gets created inside your Google Drive. Just a simple folder called Classroom. This is a folder that you don't want to ever rename. You don't want to delete it. You want it to stay right here where it is, called Classroom, because Google Classroom is going to use that folder to store things in every time you work in Google Classroom. So let's look inside it. There you will find classroom folders for each classroom that I've created. Here's the one for the file that we just archived. But for each of the classes that I've done, Google created a folder for me. And inside that folder, for each assignment that I created, Google created a folder. So assignment 6 was organizing your drive. If I open it up, there are activities that people submitted as their assignments. And so I have a copy of those. All of those are saved. And I don't need those anymore. But I don't want to delete them. And I certainly don't want to get rid of my classroom folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my classroom folder where we see all of those. I can create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it Archive 2018-2019. And then I can take the classroom from 2018-2019 and move it in there. And because I made a copy of that classroom at some point, I can also put that in there. I had another class going 2018-2019. I can move that in there. And then I can continue and make another archive folder for my 2019-2020 classes. It's fine to move things around inside your classroom folder. And by clustering those into an archive folder, it makes it easier to find the things related to your new classroom that you set up in the spring or next fall. But just don't come out here and move this folder and you'll be fine. So that's how you take care of the Google Classroom folders and files that get created inside your Google Drive. And there you have it. Those are the steps that you need to follow to correctly wrap up your Google Classroom for the year and get ready for the next year. Of course, enjoy your break first.